then? What you gonna do, brother? Oh, yeah! Are you ready? Hey, yo. And that's the bottom line. Shut that control into a nosedive. Woo!
Well, all I can say is someone's been eating their vitamins and saying their prayers.
Life sucks, and then you die.
Strategy my Oklahoma ass.
You're next.
What? Oh, that's the Goldberg just feared the Rock.
That's cheap, clean, and simple.
Rest in peace.
Welcome to another Jam Report. I'm your host, WrestleMania. This is episode 87, coming to you from CSB Studios in Tampa, Florida, the birthplace of pro wrestling. And right off the bat, I want to say thank you and a shout out to CSB Studios for still at limited capacity and limited times, but able to still keep the studios open, not only for myself, but for others, CSB alumni, to come on down and do their thing, as the kids still say, I believe. And, at this point in time, considering what is going on around the world, which I'm going to try my best not to bring up, because I'm sure many of you are frustrated at this point, if not already, or haven't been for the past at least 3 weeks, as it's been, well, actually, it'll be 3 weeks for me on Sunday, unofficially, and officially 3 weeks on this coming Monday, because up until at least 3 weeks ago, I was still part of doing gatherings and events and gigs and whatnot before everything just went to shit. I mean, let's be honest. But again, special shout outs and thank you to CSB Studios for still at least having this option, instead of just counting how many corners you still have left in your room, and more than likely doing the same things over and over again before you find that one activity that makes you happy, helps you pass the time, to have fun with, and eventually share with the world, as a lot of people have been posting all over the place on social media and sharing their activities at home. Those who are unable to go to work, those who are unable to go to school, and basically the, quote, non-essential life that you once had before this craziness. But I got to say, a lot of people have been very creative. People, at least from what I've seen, have been very, lenient and keeping it positive, in a sense where we just had April Fool's Day and not everyone really took advantage of what's been happening and trying to make that humorous, although there are entertainers out there, comedians and actors and actresses and whatnot, that take that route, but their heart's in the right place, and at least it's not overbearing at times, where it's like, okay, that's kind of hitting a soft spot for most, hitting homes for others, But it is what it is. Unfortunately, I'm sure we all have our own individual thoughts as to what's happening behind the scenes, and what else can happen, what else can be added on top of what's already happening, and so on and so forth. But for what it's worth, to get back into the theme of the show, it's WrestleMania. Well, it's WrestleMania weekend. Last night was supposed to be the Hall of Fame ceremony in Tampa, Florida, at the Amalie Arena, and I gotta say, it felt strange. Like, wait a minute, today? Oh, then I reminded myself what's happening with the world. That Hall of Fame is not happening, not yet, anyway. Many are hoping that it's going to be rescheduled, or at least postponed until the weekend of SummerSlam. So that'll be interesting, because normally when Well, actually, it could still happen in a sense because it wasn't always the case where now that SmackDown's back on Fridays, you can have that last minute go home to show. Then you have your NXT takeover, and then there's the pay-per-view, SummerSlam in this case, and then Raw. More than likely emanating all from the same arena. But this year was a little different because SmackDown's back on Fridays. How and where is the Hall of Fame going to fit? Well, make it Thursday. And that would have been, like I said, last night, April 2nd, as today is April 3rd, 2020. And we would have seen and heard speeches in the lights of the NWO, that being a lot of two-time Hall of Famers here, that being Hulk Hogan, X-Pac, or should be Six, really. X-Pac was not the NWO. Six was, but since we never really seen officially, not that I can remember, Sean Waltman as Six in the WWE. Then you have Scott Hall and Kevin Nash officially. And I mean that because they were previously inducted as Diesel and Razor Ramon. And, of course, Hulk Hogan as Hulk Hogan. But they weren't really, well, by the time the writing was on the wall that the Hall of Fame was not going to happen this year, or at least not this month, that when it came to mentioning the names and Hulk Hogan specifically, I don't remember. I'll probably have to go back to listen to this. But was he mentioned as Hollywood Hogan? I mean, does it matter? No, not really, because Ric Flair was inducted twice as Ric Flair. But they could be slick about it and say, no, that was Hulk Hogan that was inducted the first time. This is Hollywood Hogan that's being inducted as a member of the NWO. I still don't get it. Of course, there was Batista. He was his speech I was really looking forward to hearing. More than likely would have gotten emotional on stage. Curious to know who would have inducted him. I'm speaking as if this was supposed to happen. This is not going to happen. Considering we don't know what the future holds right now worldwide, and I try to give as much as I can the benefit of the doubt to WWE in this part, but if I sound like I'm speaking out of tone, then that's just how I feel at this time. If things change for the better, great. Then I'll probably get to hear that Batista speech after all. But for right now, let's try to be as realistic as possible. I'm not saying I don't want the Hall of Fame to happen for more safety reasons in the future, but I'm moving one step at a time every day now with cautious steps, and let's just try to be safe. So again, Batista I was looking forward to hearing the most out of the entire lineup. Of course, then you had the British Bulldog, which fellow CSB alumni Georgia Smith, the daughter, had an interview with about a year ago. But it's listening back to it now, it's amazing how things have come full circle as far as the interview goes. And when we discussed about her father being inducted into the Hall of Fame and how wonderful it would have been for her and her family, especially her brother, Harry Smith. And again, would the person being chosen to induct Davey Boy Smith into the Hall of Fame be the same person that Georgia was recommending? You got to listen to that episode. First ever episode of Talking with JM is over at my YouTube channel if you want to take a listen. Good passing at the time, too. There was a lot of history and a lot of family point of view events that took place, especially his time. Where I was curious more about the time when Davey Boy was in WCW, the second time, when he had his back injured on that bump on the trap door. But again, you got to take a listen to that. Of course, there were the Bellas, Nikki and Bray. I'm sorry, Nikki and Brie Bella, who are both expecting child within about the same amount of time. And of course, we would have seen them walk on stage with their baby bumps in all their glory. And I'm sure making a lot of grown men cry. But hey, They made life choices, guys, already. Get over it. Then there was JBL, and of course, probably the biggest surprise inductee of the year, international superstar Jushin Thunder Liger. Many are saying, well, he's never wrestled in WWE. True. It's true. It's unfortunate. Of course, he did have his takeover match in TakeOver Brooklyn 1, I believe, against Tyler Breeze. And even then, it was a lot of oohs and ahs because, they got Liger to come. And like many, I was hoping that it would have been at least at best a short-term run for him, maybe from 1 year into another. So that way he could say, and then we can all say, well, at least he wrestled, Thunder Liger did in WWE for that 1 year. But it was a one-off, and it was a great match. And he got his win over Tyler Breeze that night. But did he really have to wrestle in WWE or in NXT for any amount of time to be recognized? Just look at the previous inductees into the Hall of Fame. Excluding, of course, celebrities. Please do. But look at the lineup and how many can you come across that have wrestled in WWE less than a month. Just say the name Jushin Thunder Liger, and you know that this man, his image, his character have been around for years, decades. I first came across him thanks to WCW and the beginnings of the Monday Night Wars. His first match on Nitro with Brian Pillman. And of course, that wasn't the first time they met, but that was the first match they had on Nitro all together. And that was when and how I was introduced, and later find out that he had appearances previously on Saturday Night, and then with Main Event, even worldwide. Of course, those are all WCW shows, and I guess for him, it's kind of full circle as well for him. He's been, again, internationally known. There's a pun there. And I mean, the sky's the limit. I mean, the man can still go, but if you wanted to, but he's retired. He's retired, and thankfully, because of that, he can jump over these imaginary lines where he cannot or couldn't make appearances in other organizations such as WWE. Who knows if there were any plans for him in AEW or in Mexico or in Canada, again, just to make these appearances. But definitely would have been an interesting speech coming from Liger last night. Hopefully we can wait till SummerSlam weekend and see what happens. So NXT TakeOver is also canceled, which would have taken place tomorrow night, also at Amalie Arena. But the matches will still play on in upcoming episodes of NXT on the USA Network. For example, Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa. Many were saying it wasn't originally scheduled for TakeOver, but everything that led up in the previous weeks to the very final episode of NXT that had an audience in the Performance Center. It's like, yeah, these guys are going to have a match, a TakeOver. They have to. So that will air next week on the NXT show, Wednesday night. Also, the women's ladder match, where the winner will have a future championship match against the NXT Women's Champion, whoever she may be, after WrestleMania, as Chelsea Green, Mia Yim, Tegan Nox, Io Shirai, Candice LeRae, and now Dakota Kai, who won the Second Chance Gauntlet match this past week on NXT. And another match that was scheduled for TakeOver took place this past week as we saw Keith Lee retain his North American Championship over Damian Priest and Dominik Kovic. So at least they're going to deliver on that front. Very similar to the WrestleMania lineup that I'll get into a little bit later on, and what is going on with that. It's a 2-day event. honestly, this would have been something if you would ask me how to book this. Of course, with different circumstances. How would you have booked Mania, or how would you book a Mania nowadays? Since they're only going for stadiums, and I guess the Royal Rumble is going for baseball fields. So, what's SummerSlam going to be going after? I seriously doubt, since we never had one, but I seriously doubt where we're going to have a Survivor Series in the stadium or baseball field or whatnot. But you never know. You never know. But SummerSlam is the second to the biggest event of the year for them, and which is funny because the Royal Rumble is getting the treatment instead, as if they're the second biggest event. I mean, technically it is. It comes before Mania, but if you want to divide it up if you want to divide up the year in quarters, well, there you go. Rumble's first, then Mania, then SummerSlam. But with that out of the way, I would have booked Mania if I had to do it over the course of a weekend, 2 days. It's been done before, and it was a hell of a risk even back then, but it was done before. If you just go back to WrestleMania 2, and it emanated from three different arenas across the country, from New York to Los Angeles, and of course Chicago was in between. And they had about like maybe 3-4 matches in each site, each one having their own individual main event. So as they explained in the documentaries, so when the arenas that didn't have matches going on, they still allowed them to watch what was happening in that arena that did. They'll bring down these giant screens, basically making a closed circuit event for that time being, for that 1 hour. You didn't have live wrestling. And when it was your turn to put the screens away, and well, here's your portion, and I'll bring the screens back down to watch the third portion. So basically, yeah, try to do that WrestleMania 2 feel again with arenas. Like I said, that was a huge risk back then. Maybe bigger now, although they could go for it. They could try. They could at least have one of those Manias in 1 year from 1 or 2, maybe 3 locations at the same time throughout the course of a weekend, of course. And really push the idea and this notion of I was there. Remember those shirts that would sell? I was there for Mania. I was there. I have only one of those shirts, and it was the Bret Hart Appreciation Night in Madison Square Garden. I would say this took place in, oh my goodness, I want to say 2010. I want to give or take. It could be wrong. The date's on the back of the shirt, so I have to go in my drawers and look it up. But that's the only shirt I have that says I was there for whatever event, in this case, Bret Hart. And of course, now they're selling I wasn't there. Excuse me. Saying that I wasn't there. And now they have WrestleMania in your house t-shirts. So basically, they've gone. I'll give them credit for it, but they've gone through a lot of trouble to still try to make some income for the event that could have been. So they jacked up all the merchandise, not the prices, but they came out with tons of more merchandise. If you haven't been on their website, the shopping website, for a while, you see all these different T-shirt designs and logos that have WrestleMania on them. And I'll admit, there's at least 1, maybe 2 particular shirts that I would get, but they were from the original. I guess the original package that came out before all this nonsense took place. So now they're doing what they've rarely done before, and if they have recently, it's rare, but if they've done it recently, it's for one specific match at Mania, whether it's streak versus career and what have you. But now they have shirts for literally every single match that's scheduled and advertised to take place at the pre-taped WrestleMania this weekend. So if there was a match you're looking for in particularly, For example, The Fiend and John Cena. Well, there's a shirt for that. And if you can spare $100 in this time of need, you can buy those VIP take-home chairs for $100 that normally would go to VIP people who basically ringside seats. The padded chairs with the logos on them. You can buy those now for $400 a pop on the site. No, thank you. But again, how else would the talent get any kind of merchandise income? Because that was another big financial income for them when it comes to Mania, especially. If the name and likeness is on it, they get a portion of that. A huge check, mind you. So what now? No one's going to be there to buy our stuff. I mean, yes, they still got the website, but that's separately from what you'll get at live events. So again, looks like they came up with a clever way to do so. Shopping from home or on your phone, wherever you are. And if someone, a particular superstar you're interested in or want to support, just buy their shirt. It will just come with them, but now with their opponent from WrestleMania. So speaking of which, again, I'll get into the whole lineup as expected. Again, it's pre-taped, and the lineup and everything else a little bit later on. So Roman Reigns, I heard about this, and I'm glad that I watched it after the fact. But he took to Instagram, and I don't want to say vented, but if you hear this, you could tell that it bothered him a lot, and I can understand. Because all we had really were just the reports of Roman Reigns is out of Mania. Then afterwards, it was, okay, Roman Reigns pulled out of Mania due to health concerns. And that's all we had. And I took it as far as, okay, by the time, according to Roman Reigns, when a decision was made, by the time that happened, we were already knee deep in the craziness that's happening. And why didn't he make a decision sooner? And supposedly, he didn't say this, but supposedly when The Miz was told that he was medically uncleared to participate and that he had flu-like symptoms, Reigns became concerned, and then it was decided to pull out and ask for his, not release, but asked not to partake in the WrestleMania tapings versus Goldberg. So I'm probably making it more complicated than it needs to sound, but again, everything was already going on as far as staying at home. And in all fairness, it wasn't until just this past Thursday, past Wednesday, there was announced, but it went into effect Thursday, that the entire state of Florida is now basically a stay-at-home order. In other words, we're in lockdown. So that could be used or looked at as like, okay, well, technically we all were not in lockdown. Orlando didn't get their individual county, if you will, lockdown or stay-at-home order until a couple of weeks ago. That wasn't affecting tapings to go on at the Performance Center. It was just basically, well, you just don't be in the streets if you're not shopping or picking up groceries or whatnot and this and that, or working your essential job, which includes jobs like Uber Eats and among other things. Then you shouldn't be out there. And with WWE's case, they're trying to have the show go on, and I can appreciate that, especially nowadays. That's something that a lot of people don't give them credit for. While they're getting criticized, like, wait a minute, everybody else took time off. Everybody else canceled their season, the sports season, or postponed it. Although for the record, the NHL is trying to reschedule everything to finish up the year. But ironically, the XFL canceled their remaining season, which was about 3 weeks. But WWE goes on, and yes, I'm aware of this other report that's come out from WrestleVotes, which I'll get into as well later on. But back to Roman Reigns, as far as putting out this video, it was more towards, as he put it, the haters, those that don't know what's happening. Although he didn't deny as far as why he pulled out. He didn't say straight out like, oh, this is why I pulled out of Mania. No, but he did have concerns. And towards the haters specifically saying that, hey, you don't know if I have a newborn at home, and you don't know if I have family that are senior citizens at home and stuff like that. And that's true. He did say, for years, people have been like, don't show up to Mania. We don't want you there. We don't want you in it. There's a nice handful of dudes and haters who don't want me there. But the moment I make a choice for me and my family, I'm a coward. I'm a sissy. I'm a lot of things that I am. Yeah, guys, the haters and whatnot. You can't have it both ways. And yeah, I get the whole the whole notion that Roman Reigns should not be in the main event position or be champion, blah, blah, blah. I mean, the fact people to this day still say this, despite what this man has gone through the past couple of years, it's just astounding. I'm just astounded about it. Astounded? What'd I say? Well, it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous, and just get over it. And yeah, I'm not gonna deny that Roman Reigns was pushed similar like John Cena was, and even Cena. And this is probably one thing Reigns or Cena won't admit to, and that was just basically being shoved down our throats. And like, no, we want you to like this guy, opposing listening to the audience. Like, no, we want this guy. We want whoever at the time. We'll pick a year and be someone else differently every year. This except Roman Reigns. But was I on that train? I was. I'll admit that. There were times where I saw Reigns getting title shots after another. Like, wait, what the hell did he do? He's been off TV, not because he was ill at the time, but there were times where he was off TV, and when he came back, was in the middle of a title picture. He didn't win, but it was even, what year was this? When Battleground took place here in Tampa, and this had to have been about 6 years ago, 5-6 years ago, and Roman Reigns was in a fatal four-way for the WWE title, and the only time that he got a nice decent pop when he was mentioned that he was from Pensacola, Florida. So, oh, you're Floridian, yay! And then back to booing, not as much, but back to booing when Roman Reigns was on the offense. But I mean, it's a mixed bag for a lot of people. But if you're looking at it from Roman Reigns' point of view, I mean, cut the guy a break. A lot of us had no clue what he was going to say a couple of years ago when he took the time off to attend to his illness back then. And everybody went from the cheering and the booing and points in between. Look at Roman Reigns, and then he announced, well, that he's been diagnosed again with leukemia, and you can literally hear crickets in the audience. Personally, I can't speak for everybody, but personally, from that point on, I separated the Roman Reigns character from Joe, and from the Anawani family, and it's like, okay, this is not Roman Reigns talking. This is Joe, and this is something serious. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how it's going to be taken afterwards. But 4 months later, he came back. He's in remission, and he's been doing well ever since. So why hate on that? I believe he learned his lesson when he was suspended at one time for the wellness policy for a month, and he was champion. He was champion. He had dropped the title. That must have been a real kick to the gut for him. But to still be having this hate now, and the fact that WWE was still able to be like, all right, we understand, we get it. You don't want to get sick. No one here wants to get sick, and no one wants to be the one that says, oh, I got Roman Reigns sick. So kudos to WWE again to at least acknowledging that and fulfilling his wish to not partake. Roman goes on to say that fans don't know the whole story, which is true. We never do, despite these rumors and so from behind the scenes has discovered and wants to share this report or this story online. It's always one side, folks. Yes, people like myself come on here, and unless there's confirmation or a second party to back it up, then maybe there's some weight to it. But being the world of pro wrestling, you'll be lucky if ever the person we're discussing about, for example, does a shoot interview and then comes clean or admits or whatever, confirms what happened, or just denies it. Saying that everyone is assuming that his decision was because of his health. He says that the fans should just read a few chapters before judging his book, offering a newborn baby and elderly relatives living in his home as possible reasons for his choice. So at that point, you could say the gloves are off as far as his decision making to not partake in Mania. But yeah, I would tend to agree that there are a lot more that there is a lot more going on that meets the eye here, but still does not take away the fact that Roman Reigns is immune to this. Well, let me rephrase that. His immune system is compromised, and that he can get very ill from what's happening. Nobody wants that. Definitely no one in his family wants that. So, again, let's be a little bit more open-minded about this, especially to the haters out there, which apparently have nothing better to do. And I can sit here and easily say, well, imagine it's you in that position or someone you know in that position. Well, if you hate that much, you're not going to care with that example. So there's that. I briefly mentioned, and by briefly, I have one sentence last week about the arrest again of Teddy Hart. That makes it his third arrest this year. And this one, well, some light was shed on the subject by Maria Manic. I'm sorry, Maria Manic. I was going to say Maniac. Although it might be pronounced that way too. Maria Maniac. Regardless. She tried to clear the airways a little bit as far as what happened with Teddy Hart and his arrest last week, saying that she wasn't trying to hurt her, as Hart was arrested for a strangulation and charged with bodily harm in the incident involving Maria at a residence. So here's what happened, according to Maria. So far right now, without bail, thankfully, Teddy Hart's being held at the Richmond City Jail and was arrested last Thursday and charged with strangulation resulting in bodily harm after an incident involving Maria. Now, she tries to give some context as to what happened by saying that they were training Maria to fight, and that sometimes they play fight, but there's a gray area with that. And sometimes it leads to a verbal fight, which would mix in with some of the wrestling moves, saying that he took her phone, and when she tried to get it back, she alleged smacked him, which made him think that she was trying to get physical with him. Hart put her in a chokehold, and she tapped out, and things were fine. But Teddy Hart put her in another chokehold, even longer, which scared her. And she asked him to leave the house. Maria said that Hart did not want to go, did not want to comply. So she had Ace Montana speak with him to cool things down. She went to say that Teddy Hart wasn't attacking her and denied that there were being any physical abuse, noting that it would be harmful to call it domestic abuse and related it more to aggravated assault case. Maria would say that she not only didn't know Ace was filming, so there's video out there. I mean, I haven't seen it, but didn't want him to put a gun either, or pull out a gun either, because apparently Ace carries one, and just wanted Ace to help her out in the situation instead, to help assist her in having Teddy Hart leave the house and calm him down. Maria did not want the cops to be called, but had to explain the situation to local police, who had other residents have called at 911. But realistically, according to Maria, it was Ace Montana who called 911 on her behalf. She also did have some marks on her neck, and she's had worse scrapes from her wrestling matches, according to Maria. But police still arrested Hart due to the injuries, saying that Teddy went too far, but she didn't want to press charges against him. And that's really the way it went down. It wasn't the straight out physical assault or domestic violence or dispute that led from a argument, for example. So, by the way, there was no mention, at least from Maria's story, no mention if any alcohol was involved or any other substances were in the house. But, okay, if you're training, sometimes in training, you would have to get the feel for it. So you would have to get a few licks in the chin or in the jaw. Hell, you would get not a full-on spray, but for those who have trained in OC sprays, or for those who don't know, mace, getting a can of mace, if you're a peace officer or security officer, you got to know what you're dealing with. You have to realize by using such chemicals in someone's face and eyes, you have to get a feel for how to be in that position. You have to know how it feels to be in that position. So I wasn't sprayed in the eyes, but the trainer would take a piece of cloth, give off a couple of squirts in the inside cloth, and swipe it underneath my eyes. Yeah, was not a pleasant feeling. So even in physical combat training, yeah, you'll be flipped, you'll be tackled, you'll be dropped, the whole 9 yards. Not you'll be in a safer, more protected environment. At least you're not doing this on concrete. Hopefully not. But in so many words, you got to get your hands dirty when it does come to training. So up to the point of the smack, allegedly, from Maria to Teddy to get her phone back. And his reaction was to put her in a chokehold. Taps out, lets her go. Okay. Then what the hell happened in between the two chokeholds? She doesn't explain what happened exactly, that little gap between the two chokeholds that prompted Teddy to put it back on her, and this time wouldn't let go. So there's a lot more to it. If I know, just by hearing that bit of story, many are thinking like, well, she's trying to protect them or this and that. Okay, I get that, but to what degree, I ask? Is he even worth this kind of protection, considering the reasons why he's been arrested before? And the last one was a very serious one, arrested with possession of narcotics with the intent to sell. I mean, that's allegedly, but that's a serious charge. I'm like, dude, we had a good run, but don't think we need to be friends anymore. So we shall see. I mean, he's being held without bail. No word or no mention for his trial date. At least I haven't come across that. But more of a reason probably not to book this guy anywhere or anytime soon. Sucks to say, but especially this nowadays, where who can be booked. But at least he's getting at least it's nice to know that he's getting 3 square meals a day. Dave Meltzer reported that a few days ago, Chris Jericho mentioned that he disliked his segment with Matt Hardy on Dynamite. Well, he didn't say Meltzer, that is. Specifically, the original segment, because it was taped twice. And it had to be in order to get that teleporting effect that Matt Hardy pulled off at the end of Dynamite this week and approach Chris Jericho in the ring. So here's what happened. The segment featured Jericho and Hardy trading blows before the Inner Circle and Elite joined in. And this will lead to the end of the show. Or at least this is how the show will go off air. And the original plan for the segment was to film it before Dynamite aired on Wednesday. But since there was still too much light outside of the arena and it was shining through, the segment would have obviously had been wrong and out of sequence going from day to night. I mean, unless you're playing Castlevania. But the entirety of Dynamite was indeed alive, except for the Kip Sabian and the Darby Allin match that was taped ahead of time. And it was during this time, while that match was being aired on TV as pre-taped, Jericho and Hardy were pre-taping their segment. Everyone involved reportedly liked the second version much better. And Jericho had the following to say. They filmed it the night before. Wednesday comes, and I didn't really like the way it turned out. It wasn't my vision, really. So we said, let's do it again Wednesday, and we'll do it right before the show starts. And keep in mind, there is nobody coming into the venue. So we thought we'd film around 8 o'clock. But the problem was the sun hadn't gone down yet, and it was still fairly light outside coming in from to the venue. So they literally did this on the fly. During a match, they taped it, they edited it as quick as possible, and kudos to that team that pulled it off and still may air basically a few minutes later to close the show. It's amazing how much talent it takes to do something like that in a matter of minutes. And that's I think that's the fastest edit I can remember taking place at a wrestling show. And I've always thought that something like that will be nearly impossible. But if you look at the people in the media world, especially those who cover newscast and put together those pre-taped 30 seconds to a minute news packages, that's all being done the day of, probably a couple of hours beforehand. And maybe they're out there that morning and it makes air for the 6 o'clock news. But you for something like that, for a skill and talent like that, you got to be on your toes. So kudos for those who were involved in the editing process. That was amazing. And yeah, I mean, there were obviously those jump cuts, but you know what? For the purpose of the storyline, it worked out. And who see what kind of trickeries they'll have by the time they're able to have a live audience in the same arena. I mean, there's always the lights go out and maybe Matt Hardy, if he's still up in the upper deck somewhere by the box seats, if you will, lights go out and he ends up zip lining from there to the ring, and the lights come back on, and Hardy's still struggling to get out of his harness or whatnot. But it was entertaining. I mean, what can you say and do about it? And in the promo itself, the back and forth that Jericho and Hardy had, they mentioned a lot of history with each other, and it works, despite the failed attempt for Jericho to have Hardy join the Inner Circle, but that didn't work. So we move on, and we'll see when and where Hardy and Jericho will have another main event kick-ass match. For those who have been following, I'm sure know this already, but for those who don't, Rusev is now bald. Yes, he recently got an electric razor and shaved off all of his dark hair on top. He still has the beard, of course, his little nice thick bushy beard. But he shared this on his he shared his brand new look on his Instagram story feed. So yeah, Rusev is now bald. And yes, bald is beautiful. WWE has landed a deal to expand its partnership with Sony Pictures Networks in India to continue bringing their content to the country for the next 5 years. As part of the agreement, Sony Pictures Networks will have the rights to air Raw, SmackDown, NXT, as well as pay-per-views and other special events live on its sports and digital platforms in English, Hindi, and regional languages. So they're still working despite all this nonsense happening. It's good to know that business for them can still move forward and provide more content in other territories around the world. Unfortunately, New Japan Pro Wrestling has made a decision to cancel even more events, now extending the cancellations through April 18th. Refunds are being offered. Well, there were conflicting reports about how the content. That's not what it is. The Asia, or all of Asia, specifically China and Japan, the continent. I was trying to say that there was some good news coming out of there, some line of hope to slow down what's been going on. But unfortunately, some people, according to reports from Asia, some people became overzealous and began celebrating too soon. So now things are back to square one. I'm not sure about the stay-at-home order that's going on out there. Here we have it to the end of April, assuming things get better. But now Japan at least has theirs extended for the next 2 weeks, and that led to at least 1 or 2 scheduled wrestling events. But now they're canceled, as I mentioned. And it's a prime example of maybe you still want to keep your event scheduled but also keep in mind the possibility of canceling. So if it's more concerned financially than anything else, well, first of all, that says a lot about your character. But second, obviously the safety of others. But what's happening? It's happening to human beings, the human race. I want to say, I'll just say this for the sake of saying it. Putting aside being ridiculed and getting hate messages, tweets, emails, whatever, about you should have canceled. What are you doing? You should suspend your things and blah, blah, blah. If you can pull it off and get away with it for the sake of still putting out entertaining content, more power to you. The bigger picture here to provide all of that involves other human beings. So the point I'm getting is, yes, what's happening is only affecting human beings. And yes, animals can be affected. There have been reports that there have been cats and dogs been affected. But somehow they can't pass it on to humans. But then again, with the back and forth and seesaw reports that have been happening, that concept might change later on. But for now, let's focus on what we've been told and what we have in front of us. So yes, this only affects human beings. It's not affecting the arenas. It's not affecting the physical arenas or the stadiums or any other venues that would have the possible gathering of hundreds, tens of thousands of people at the same time. That's not going anywhere. These arenas, unless they're bulldozed anytime soon, they're not going anywhere. And you can always reschedule as long as it doesn't conflict with another event that was supposed to take place at the same event, at the same arena. And just schedule around it. But before you do that, you got to make sure everybody that you want to partake in that includes your talent, that includes the camera crew, the production truck, and all that, is good to go. So if you're hoping like New Japan was doing, if you're holding on to hope that, okay, maybe things will clear out, so let's not cancel just yet everything a month from now. There's nothing wrong with that, but at the same time, keeping in mind, like to what degree you want to keep this entertaining thing going. And it's not the only form of entertainment that's available. Unfortunately, the movie industry is going to take a huge hit this year, especially in the spring and summer months. Most, if not all, of the movies that were scheduled that were going to come out between now and June, and I'll extend it to August, are being rescheduled for another year from now, at the very least. If things get better before the year is out, they could probably reschedule again, although it might conflict with other movie releases that are going to be competing with each other. But you know what? At that point, does it really matter? I would personally let the audience decide what you want to see. So if you want Morbius to come out at the same time as the next Fast and Furious movie that was not canceled, but the release was, and have it rescheduled to come out the same day, and you're a fan of both, what are you going to do? Hell, Keanu Reeves was going to have The Matrix 4 and John Wick 4 come out the same time, the same day next year. As far as I know, that hasn't been affected yet as far as a release date, but it could. But for the sake of this argument, I was looking forward to, like, wow, Keanu Reeves is going to have two movies at the same time being released. And this wasn't a situation between all Justice League and the Avengers coming out at the same time. Justice League, I believe, was the one that, no, there's no there's competition here. They're going to whip our ass in the box office. Let's just reschedule. And they did, about 2 weeks apart. Made no difference at the end, but hey, they would have been slaughtered that opening weekend for sure. But back to John Wick here and Neo, that would have been freaking awesome. At the best, what you could have done is purchase, and if you want to watch both movies the same day, yeah, watch one in the morning, watch one later on. Flip a coin to the side. Or whatever. At least the movie theaters, at first trying to practice this social distancing, but things just got worse. And you know what? We're putting our employees we're putting our employees in danger too. Supermarkets have realized this, and now limiting the customers. Employees can still go to work and do their restocking, reshoving, and all that, but if you have 40, 50, 100 people in the store trying to shop at the same time, and one of them has what's going on, what are you going to do about it? I'm just trying to say, and I'm not trying to tell how anyone to run their business. And yes, it sounds like I'm coming across that, but to what degree? Nothing wrong holding on hope. Hell, I was hoping by this time things will be a little bit better, and that things can get back to normal so I can go back to work. But then I realized the woes of my frustration, and besides giving out words of encouragement and be there for those who need it, is the most that I can do. Can I do more? Sure. I just got to see exactly where I fit properly and do my part to help this world keep moving forward. And at the same time, not putting others at risk that might be the first to get these things that's happening. And I'm doing what I can. Hell, I'm wearing latex gloves right now in the studio, touching every equipment in here. And there's a mask hanging off my chin. So, matter of fact, let's see. I'm wearing the mask now. Does it make any difference in the audio? Well, I think it does according to my meters over here. Yeah, a little bit. But I'm I'm alone in the studio right now, and as soon as I'm done, I'm gonna sanitize everything that I touched before I leave. So, we are all going to take a hit financially. So if you still have something scheduled this month, next month that is yet to be postponed or canceled altogether, now's the time to probably heavily consider that possibility, and count on losses. And it's not because I don't have a business to run, that I don't own one, that it's easier for me to say. But I know a lot of people that are business owners. And for what it's worth, speaking to them and how frustrating it is for them to make certain decisions, to let people go, to keep them on payroll, to still pay them out even though they're not working. What is the right thing to do? Ask 10 people, you're going to get 10 different answers. So it is what it is, folks. It's really shitty of me to say, but whenever this is all settled with and done, the world as we know it is different. It's different now. So let's see what happens at the end of this tunnel. Anyone that's been watching these new episodes of the Dark Side of the Ring, man, the first season was amazing. I mean, for most episodes, they shared and reported nothing really new, especially when it came to the Match Made in Heaven, Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth marriage in '91. Well, the kayfabe marriage. Then, of course, they discussed what happened behind the scenes and afterwards. And again, nothing really, not much anyway, from my point of view, that was shared then that I didn't know already. There were a lot of insights shared from the first episode of this new season of the Chris Benoit story, and having a lot of relatives discuss what really happened. I was just, not to give too much away, because I think you should see it for yourself and draw your own conclusions. But I was just really taken off guard that not the entire, but they showed pictures of evidence of the scene of the crimes. They didn't show anyone. They didn't show anything as far as what might have been used to take the lives of Chris, Daniel, and Nancy. And I say their first names with all due respect. What they did was, at least Viceland, what they did was crop the photo and just showed the corner of the room, or the lamp and the table stand that it was standing on, and of course that's what a lamp would do on a table stand. But still, it was very insightful. Not to give too many spoilers, because again, I encourage everyone to watch it. It's a 2-part episode. The first hour focus on the passing of Eddie Guerrero and the effect it had on Chris Benoit and everyone else in his family and those close to him, and led to what Chris Benoit apparently did. And it just sucks, even from that story, that there's still haters today that would reach out to Chavo and the families of Nancy and the Benoits with the trolling, basically, to repeat that text message that Benoit sent to Guerrero the last time about the dogs and the lights in the house. The dogs are outside. Come on. And again, that comes to like, oh, well, what if this happens to you? Then they're not going to care. You can tweak it and turn it around all you want. But these trolls just won't ever learn. Yeah, and I include even getting an ass whooping from someone. They still won't learn. Hell, even the New Jack episode, although even then, that episode this week that dropped, nothing new was really explained. But it was still interesting to hear a little bit more from New Jack's point of view, and Jim Cornette as well, which he knew New Jack very well from the Smoky Mountain days. Sandman had his insight as far as what he was aware of and what he knew about the mass transit incident. Good Lord, and the whole Vic Grimes incident, both of them. It's too bad Paul Heyman couldn't have a bit of a cameo in this, but obviously, look at it from a more of a copyright issue. But it's still interesting how Viceland is still able to use copyrighted footage from WWE, despite how much you crop it. Doesn't matter. That's still they still own that footage. But I think for the sake of documentaries, it is allowed. Even though it's a little bit complicated than that, but it's still allowed. But, I still got tagged by WWE anyway when I posted my documentary about the Anawani family and their legacy on my YouTube channel. But, it is what it is. I'm just so happy that many people have got to see it so far and got a lot of positive feedback. So thank you for that. But New Jack, well, the mass transit incident was no joke. Even Jericho in his narrations, like this put wrestling back on the map, but for all the wrong reasons. Unfortunately, the family of the young man who would pass away from complications from Gasbury surgery, which is astounding to me. I never knew that could be possible. But he did. And the family declined to be interviewed or take part of this documentary because they felt that it would bring back memories and we'd have to relive that while telling the story so many years later, and just didn't want to put themselves through that. And I can respect that. But upcoming this week, and I'm curious because they have Jim Ross, Jim Cornette, their Godfather, even Bart Gunn. Haven't seen him in years. But the episode that's coming up from Dark Side of the Ring is the Brawl for All. Curious to see who else. They had like a 30-second, maybe less than that, trailer on YouTube. And all these faces popped up and there were others. But curious to see who else they might have gotten to talk about this, because talk about a black guy in the pro wrestling business at the time. This is something that should not have happened. It should not have taken place. Looking back in hindsight now, but I definitely want to hear what Bart Gunn has to say. I don't think he's done a shoot. He might have, but I don't know. I'm not sure if he's done a shoot interview since WrestleMania 15, discussing what happened with Butterbean and what happened with the whole concept of the Brawl for All, that he wasn't expected to win. He wasn't meant to win, but yet they wanted Dr. Death Steve Williams to get over and eventually have a feud with Stone Cold Steve Austin. At least that was the idea. But considering how things turned out, and even if Bart Gunn was meant to have a title shot versus the WWE champion at the time after WrestleMania 15, which ironically would have been Stone Cold Steve Austin, what would have been left of Bart Gunn? I mean, he was demolished by Butterbean, and not to mention had a couple of minor injuries during the Brawl for All itself. So hopefully you can answer that and more on this episode of Dark Side with the Ring. And look at me, I sound like I work with the people and I'm promoting it here, but I'm just plugging it because it's a great set of documentaries. I can't wait to see the others that are coming up, including Jimmy Snuka, including Dina Bravo. And of course, they've already laid out the lineup and the schedule for these episodes. And Owen Hart will be the last episode as the season finale for Dark Side of the Ring later on. Actually, in a few weeks, so it's not that long off. Cassius Ohno, who's now with NXT UK, he has set up a GoFundMe account for Tracy Smothers, a friend and mentor on for his benefit in battling stage 3 lymphoma. He was diagnosed back in November of 2019. The money that is going to be raised will help cover medical bills. If you would like to donate, head over to GoFundMe.com and search Tracy Smothers Cancer Benefit. Cassius Ohno also confirmed a T-shirt is being sold in honor of Smothers, and 100% of those proceeds will be going towards his medical bills. So if you can, and you don't have to be a Tracy Smothers fan, just be a pro wrestling fan in general, or be a fan of humankind, and donate what you can to Tracy Smothers at GoFundMe.com. More cancellations to discuss as MLW has rescheduled their May 2nd event set in Dallas. And they also sent out a new announcement confirming that they postponed the shows they postponed all shows, I should say, until October 3rd. And noting that tickets purchased for the original May 2nd date will be honored on October 3rd, and any and all rescheduled dates after October 3rd. So check with MLW's website and wherever you purchased your tickets from, for example, Ticketmaster, and see which future dates will honor your May 2nd tickets if you haven't refunded them yet. So here we go. According to WrestleVotes, the Money in the Bank may not happen as planned, and it's unknown when and where the event will take place, considering the situation of what's happening around the world. Now, Money in the Bank was originally scheduled to take place on May 9th at the Royal Farms Arena in Baltimore, Maryland. Tickets already are on sale on March 10th. This would mark the second time the Money in the Bank pay-per-view will be held in May. Normally it's hosted either in July or late June. So this also would have been the first pay-per-view in general, I should say, for Baltimore, since they hosted the last one back in 2017. And I believe that would have been Extreme Rules. So besides WrestleMania this weekend, which is pre-taped, there are still other scheduled pay-per-view events that are a go, that they still have the green light, which include on July 19th, Extreme Rules from San Jose, California. August 22nd, NXT TakeOver Boston. And August 23rd, SummerSlam. Now, somewhere in there, again, the Hall of Fame is set to be rescheduled. And scheduled for October 22nd, it will be the original NXT UK TakeOver Dublin that was supposed to take place this coming April 26th. So there are changes. Then again, not really. But looks like WWE is still holding on hope. And again, nothing wrong with that. To see if these remaining pay-per-views can still go on without a hitch and with actual fans in attendance in these respective arenas. This past week on Raw, Zelina Vega announced that Andrade suffered a rib injury, so he'll be unable to compete at WrestleMania 36. Keep in mind that this was a pre-taped Raw. So this happened the previous Thursday and Friday. So it's assuming safe to believe that Andrade's been injured. Maybe he was injured during the original tapings and they had to redo the match on Raw this past week. And now having Austin Theory from NXT replace him to team up with Angel Garza to take on the Street Profits for the Raw Tag Team titles at WrestleMania. So now there's another name out of Mania, and more than likely, ironically enough, taking place during the pre-tapes. So as of now, at first I was under the impression that there wouldn't be one, but I come to find out that it is scheduled, and there will be a 1-hour kickoff show to the pre-tape WrestleMania event, one for Saturday and one for Sunday. Although there haven't been any matches announced yet, but I would assume that there will be at least one kickoff match before, and that just hasn't been announced yet. But for WrestleMania 36 itself, again, it's all pre-taped. I don't have any spoilers here. I will run down the lineup in a few. But WrestleMania will be available for purchase on Fox Sports app and foxsports.com for the first time ever. And for the 2-night event, for the simple price of $59.99. So April 4th and April 5th, Saturday and Sunday, bell time is at 7 p.m. And it is scheduled to be a 3-hour show each. So altogether, including the kickoffs, 8 hours of WrestleMania. Except it won't be all in one day. So we finally get a break in that compared to last year's Mania, which was not the show itself, but the backlash and afterwards what happened, people trying to get home, a complete disaster. An event that I was thinking of attending, but thankfully I didn't. So here I am. Also among those offering WrestleMania, besides the network, the Fight Network. Fight TV enters into the ring with the latest provider, or as the latest provider, to add WrestleMania to the lineup. And they have announced they're offering the event as part of a 2-day weekend package for fans in the United States and in select international territories for the same price of $59.99. So it looks like WWE was able to reach out and make some, at least if it's temporarily, a deal with outside and third-party companies to carry at least WrestleMania. We don't know at this point. I mean, this is not exactly ESPN Plus, but a deal was still struck. I mean, the Fox one doesn't surprise me at all, but at least it's an option. But the Fight Network, Dan's like, oh, okay, wow. All right. Good move there, WWE. So all this leading up to tonight's go-home show for SmackDown, which is a pre-tape show, and the last opportunity, in my opinion, to explain all of the matches that have been changed in the past 2 weeks in regards to who has called out or who is not medically cleared to wrestle and so on, no points in between. So with that said, for those who don't know, the Florida governor, Ron DeSantis, has initiated a statewide lockdown for the next 30 days. The state of Florida is in lockdown and has also issued a stay-at-home order. Now, well, of course, only for essentials can you be outside, such as grocery shopping, picking up your medication, doctor's appointments, and all that. But when this, and I was one of the few that thought this the first time I heard, how is this going to affect the rest of the wrestling community? I mean, besides the independent scene, many who haven't been working at all for the past few weeks, the last show in town that was still going is WWE. Now, they have reportedly pre-taped future episodes for Raw, SmackDown, and NXT post WrestleMania. Now, this is a mixed bag that I'm going to discuss, so try to keep up here with me a little bit. So, according to WrestleVotes, WWE might reconsider their current schedule following WrestleMania due to the new restrictions. Now, this may be the first time ever in WWE history, if it falls through, that the WWE might consider taking a break. No WWE whatsoever. So, as I mentioned, they have pre-taped a few episodes of Raw and SmackDown post-Mania and NXT. However, if, and that's a big if, Vince McMahon decides to shut down WWE entirely for who knows how long, the buck stops after WrestleMania. And whenever they return, it's a, quote, a relaunch or a reset, and everything and everybody starts fresh. That includes storylines. That also means what they pre-taped for the next 2 to 3 weeks may not be seen at all. Because if they're planning to shut down and start fresh, then how would the following 2 to 3 weeks pre-tapes fit into the relaunch, so to speak? I mean, storyline-wise, if they follow straight through anyway, they air the pre-taped episodes for the next 2 to 3 weeks, and by the 4th week, for example, they start fresh out of nowhere. So the previous week's storylines and angles are literally dropped overnight, and they start fresh. And they've done that before for individual storylines, sure, but for the entire programming, the entire show, for all of the angles, no, that would definitely be a first. So it's not out of their comfort zone just to stop everything dead in their tracks and start fresh over. So either way, it's going to happen. This I believe this restart, this refresh. Keeping in mind also, Fox and the USA Network could still air. No, this is my opinion. This wasn't reported, but they could still air best of shows. But for now, take the possible consideration of taking a time off. Take it as a rumor. And if they do it, I'll be giving them a standing ovation. Finally, not because of what's happening, not because that, they're too stubborn or whatnot to do something like this, because everyone else has done it, but for the fact that they actually had the option to do it first, they didn't do it, hence all these pre-tapes, and now, hey, things aren't getting any better, now what? Like, okay, shut down. Finally, basically giving in, that's what I'll be applauding to. So in this case, it's, second time's a charm. Well, AEW might be facing the same situation. They have already made plans to tape Dynamite outside of their normal Jacksonville location due to the stay-at-home order. They're broadcasting from a quote undisclosed location as of this week, and it's unclear. The pre-tapes, that is, not Dynamite Live, and it's unclear what the new company AEW will do if they are forced to shut down the doors temporarily as well. So AEW is barely a year old, if that, and it's a situation I'm sure they weren't prepared to face. More so because they're a brand new company in comparison. We'll just have to wait and see. And if my little rant earlier health matters, then I do hope everybody gives in. It's like, listen, let's just be safer than safe. There is enough of, at least from AEW's point of view, there is enough in their library now. Not much, but I understand that people don't want to watch replays or repeats of previous episodes, or maybe they can air a portion of the pay-per-view one week and then the next, the rest of it or whatnot. But they have, unless it's in that contract, I don't know, I didn't read it, but unless they have an obligation to fill up that airtime on TNT, and the same thing goes for WWE on USA, that we are scheduled to have WWE content. What do you have? Again, if their contract says that they have to, if they don't do it, they'll be in breach and there'll be lawsuits. So that's why I say best ofs is probably the best alternative, or the only alternative to go with that until the time is right to come back to, quote, normal life. But that's just me. If you agree or disagree, tell me what you think should be done in the comments below as far as if everyone's taking time off. That includes AEW and WWE. What can they do about it as far as providing content for their maybe, supposedly, allegedly part in a contract that says with their respective networks to air anything in their time slots. So here we are, literally WrestleMania weekend, and it's going to extend in a portion of 2 days. And the following have been pre-taped. No spoilers. The only argument ongoing, supposedly, is the order of the matches that will air. And there are reports that WWE have even taped alternate endings to matches, which to me not only avoid spoilers and may feed into the possible break of WWE reconsidering taking one, or just overall unsure what to do moving forward if the state were to shut down, which it has, and what will be next for them. So in no particular order, this is what we are expected to see in the pre-tapes. And again, tonight on SmackDown will be the last opportunity that the WWE would have to explain any and all changes from what I'm going to discuss right now that is scheduled, that has been advertised, even commercials to the last minute for WrestleMania 36. And by the way, not all the matches will take place in the Performance Center. There's also Full Sail University, where NXT will tape from, and specific locations for certain matches that I'll explain. So for the WWE Championship, Brock Lesnar will defend against Drew McIntyre, who's been MIA in the past couple of weeks from Raw. For the NXT Women's Championship, Rhea Ripley will defend against Charlotte Flair. In a disclosed location, in the Boneyard match, AJ Styles will take on The Undertaker. Kevin Owens versus Seth Rollins. For the Universal Championship, now that we know Roman Reigns has come out and said flat out that he's not going to be in it, and no spoilers, but Goldberg is still expected to defend the title at Mania, but against whom? Hopefully tonight we'll find out. And yet another possible disclosed location, possibly, I believe, for a Firefly Funhouse match. John Cena will take on The Fiend Bray Wyatt. For the Raw Women's Championship match, Becky Lynch will defend against Shayna Baszler. SmackDown Women's Championship will be defended now in a 5-pack challenge instead of the original 6-pack challenge, as Dana Brooke, for those who don't remember, was self-quarantined a couple of weeks ago after the original 6-pack challenge match was announced and all participants were in the ring for that week's episode of SmackDown. But because of that change, the following tapings for SmackDown narrowed it down to a 5-pack challenge, as Bayley will defend against Lacey Evans, Tamina, Naomi, and Sasha Banks. Somehow, Elias, from his seemingly broken back from last week after the terrible fall he suffered from King Corbin, they will go one-on-one at WrestleMania somehow. Though Bobby Lashley was reported to be self-quarantined, he is still scheduled to face Aleister Black at WrestleMania, ? For the Raw Tag Team titles, it is now the Street Profits defending against Angel Garza and Austin Theory replacing the injured Andrade, also the United States champion. In the last man standing match will be Edge versus Randy Orton. For the Intercontinental Championship, Sami Zayn will defend against Daniel Bryan. I would also put a question mark next to this one. I could be wrong. There haven't been too many reports about what's going on with Daniel Bryan. Where does he stand with all this as far as any kind of health concerns? Because of Brie Bella did put out some concerns of any and all health risk for her husband. Of course, everyone else too. But they're expecting child. So I'm pretty split down the middle on this one. If it takes place, great. Sami Zayn versus Daniel Bryan could be a great match. But if it doesn't, of course, everybody, including myself, will be disappointed. And Otis will take on Dolph Ziggler. And for the Women's Tag Team Championships, Asuka and Kairi Sane are scheduled to take on Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss for those titles. Again, that's another question mark for me. As for one, not because Kairi Sane hasn't been seen in a while, but there have also been concerns about Asuka, and maybe she could have also asked for not to partake in the WrestleMania tapings, but could be wrong. We'll see. Again, hopefully everything will be explained tonight and throughout the duration of whatever has been pre-taped. Then again, I don't see why they can't have the kickoff shows, I should say, live from a different location instead of the Performance Center. I mean, that's just me. So you notice I didn't mention the SmackDown Tag Team titles that is scheduled to be a triple threat match between the New Day, the Usos, and Miz and Morrison. Again, tonight, last chance to explain all this. So it's unclear if the match was already taped, and if it's no secret that The Miz, who was reportedly medically unclear to wrestle this week, played a role in the tapings. There was a solution for this as a rumored one-on-one match, but it's a rumor as far as a solution that involved, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it, the rumor, because I think it's ridiculous or it makes sense. And probably because it's not part of the official lineup as of tonight. But how do you have a one-on-one match to determine the tag team champions? But I won't mention who would have been part of it. I'll leave it at that. So, WrestleMania 36 could possibly, although yes, there's Impact Wrestling with a ton of pre-taped stuff that they have in their library that they can still air. But it's getting down to the nitty-gritty with many of them, many companies, and one being WWE. What's going to happen? Will we find out Sunday night, maybe Monday for Raw, if there is one? If it's the one pre-tape scheduled to air, would it be a different one? And will we have Vince McMahon have a announcement to make? Either way, it's going to be a very interesting WrestleMania, to say the least. There's always a time for a first, and you know how they brag about first time ever this, first time ever that. Well, here you go. Now everybody can be a part of this first ever event, anything, at the same time in a span of a weekend. So hopefully everything worked out. That I know of, there haven't been any reported injuries from the pre-tapes, and no fallouts or anything like that. So it's just a question of sitting back and see how it all plays out. Who will be the new champions? Who will be moving on post-WrestleMania? Although I will say this, and this just came across my newsfeed. According to multiple reports from What Culture, Wrestling Inc., and E-Wrestling News, AEW's no fans taping of Dynamite this week was potentially stopped when local police came in to the, quote, undisclosed location, looking to potentially shut down the event due to, of course, the outbreak. AEW have not confirmed these reports or publicly commented on the situation at this time. So this should be taken, for now anyway, as a rumor. So they're not playing. I mean, I take this as local authorities are not playing that if you are not supposed to be there, well, if you rented a place out, then you're supposed to be there, get your money's worth. But I'm saying that, well, that don't mean anything if an order was put in place, and at that point you can argue that, you're not supposed to be there. So shut down everything, go home, let's stay home and be safe, and find other ways to pass the time. So with all that said, folks, I would normally have predictions for WrestleMania, but it is so different. As a fan, from my perspective, from my point of view, it is so different. And the fact that it's pre-taped. And kudos, thankfully not everyone did this, but there are a list of spoilers out there to tell us who won, who did, and all that, obviously, but I avoided that like nobody's business. And it wasn't easy. I did come across maybe one or two, but that was only for those who were mentioned that were not going to be there. Hence why I mentioned question marks with the Bobby Lashley match, with the Daniel Bryan match. So unless those reports, yeah, I'm Canadian now. No, unless those reports were wrong or just plain rumors or just flat out misinformed, then from my perspective, I'll just leave a question mark in there. You know, yeah, I would spend time drilling someone else who thinks who knows it all, and would try to school me on something that, like, well, look at what your sources said was expected to happen and didn't. And in a sense, I guess everybody who reported on the same channel ended up being wrong. I wouldn't even say that they were wrong. It was just things change, right? Things happen. But to follow up from the same source that you normally go to, and in my opinion, I think they should acknowledge, like, okay, this is what was reported, and we were wrong. If it comes to that circumstance, then just flat out say that you were wrong. It's not easy to do, and I know it's even worse to retract a statement or story that might have been posted already. But better safe than sorry. You know, if you stick to your guns, like, no, this is what really happened, but you still ended up being proven wrong, you could be in a lot of trouble. I'm just saying. So, with that said, let's all enjoy WrestleMania for what it is. At least it gives me an excuse now after this, because I'm going to do some shopping for myself, get some treats, get some snacks for myself, and kick back. Maybe get maybe not one but 2 6-packs of refreshments, if you know what I'm saying, and just watch. And for those who do follow me on social media, yeah, I will still post the results in real time as after they happen, of course, of the winners of each match, and give my brief opinion about it. So check in the description below where you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Of course, here you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. Keep you updated with the most of what's going on out there in the world of pro wrestling. And nowadays, I've been reporting about what's been going on around the world too. So yeah, you can add that to my resume and my portfolio. So everyone, and I've been saying this for the past couple of weeks now, if you are and you're planning to, and you have a upcoming special occasion, such as birthdays, anniversaries, don't stop on the account of what's been going on around the world. Celebrate them. Celebrate that you lived another year. Celebrate that you're together for another year, and all other points in between in celebration, whether it's a holiday, again, a personal day. Celebrate. Reach out to those who know still care about you and you care about them. There are ways now. Everyone's doing it on talk show hosts, late night talk shows as well. They're getting together with Skype, Hangouts, or whatever they're using, and that's their new content. So basically, what I'm saying, that there is no excuse for many of us to reach out to others. I'm still doing it the old-fashioned way and pick up the telephone. What's that? It's a telephone, and still keep in contact. Hell, I spoke to family from Spain the other day, and everyone's doing well, thank God. So life doesn't stop. Yes, there is a bunch of craziness going on, and we're losing a lot of people. But life doesn't stop. With heartbreaking as it is, as frustrating as it is, and unfortunate as it is, I offer prayers and condolences for those who have lost anyone during this crisis. For those who haven't, I would say take a moment to reflect. And what if that was someone you knew? What if it was you? It's not about the survival of the fittest. It never was. At least I don't think it was. But let's just put aside the nonsense of like, well, it's my spring break, I got to go celebrate. Like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. You can do that at home. If you have a patio, use it. Even a jungle swing set at home, use that. Even though if you don't fit, you might break it down. If you sit on it, whoa, I'm on spring break. Okay, at least you're doing it from home. let's all do our part, at least for the time being. Let's listen to what everyone's suggesting in these newscast briefings. If watching your local news, personally, I keep track with World News Tonight. And yeah, may not be 100% accurate, but I'm wearing this face mask. I'm wearing my gloves, doing my part. Yes, I'm not home. I realize that. Thank you. But I come out here to do what I consider an essential, just no different than those who are on air, on radio, on television, to bring you this information and covering, in this case, pro wrestling news. So, yes, this is an essential. But for everybody, again, let's just follow the instructions, follow these orders for the time being. Hopefully, sooner than later, we can get back to normal life. And with that said, thank you for listening to another episode of JM Report. Everyone, be safe, be good, be healthy. Till next time.
Leave it all behind. So open your mind and realize that your beautiful world could take my life. And I'm sinking under, drowning faster. Please just let me breathe.